That just happened, guys. The episode that was promised, Game of Thrones Season 7 finale, The Dragon and the Wolf. I'm Terry Schwartz. Joining me is Joshua Yale.
Yes, and this episode is dark and full of spoilers, full spoilers for The Dragon and the Wolf, the episode we just saw, and are crazy excited to talk about.
And I love that so many of you guys came and tweeted along with us. We are here in the IGN office the night of the finale. We came here just for you guys, and I had asked for people's predictions earlier today. I wanted to give some quick shout outs to the folks who predicted correctly the insane events that happened in the finale. So, first of all, those who guessed that Arya would kill Littlefinger, we got Kristen Bates, Donuts fan, Zachary Rolfe, and GamerBoredom.com. Good job.
Nice, guys.
Soft clap, soft clap. That the wall would come down, which, oh my God, like people have been saying this for years, never thought it would actually happen. Corey, which is at The Colors, Wayne Gollett, Brian at BGold1711, Rob at ItBeRob, and he also said no, he thought that there would be ghosts. There was no ghosts, sorry. There was not budget for ghosts this season, apparently. And Tom Palmer, who won with just tweeting a Blue Eyes White Dragon kiss.
Yes!
The best
White
guess.
lightning. That's totally what the Night King was doing to get that magic blue
He was
fire
like
to come
just,
out.
you know, had the Yu-Gi-Oh cards throwing him down. Those that guessed some mix of R plus L equaling J officially, and then John and Danny would get it on. I feel like I'm just speaking fan fiction right now. This is amazing. The Warden of the West, who called it Targaryen Bone Zone. You were right. Ryan, Mark Bradley, and Michael Garza. And Donuts fan again with a correct prediction that breaks my heart. There is no Clegane Bowl in this episode.
Bowl.
But it's so close.
Yeah.
Set up for Clegane Bowl.
Next season.
Yeah, Maester Hypeman will get it right one of these days.
Man, Donuts fan was
Yeah,
it?
he was on it. He had like 3 predictions.
He knows
2
what's
out of
up.
3.
Maybe he's the three-eyed raven.
You better not have read the leaks and broken my role as Donuts fan.
No, don't do that.
But there was other cool stuff this week too before we get into the meat of this episode. Our Snapchat.
Yes, our Snapchat was so cool. So, you know, every day we have a new Snapchat edition, and this time it was a Game of Thrones bingo card. I got 8 different things on my card. I had the Targaryen house card, but I didn't actually get anything connected. I didn't make bingo.
I got a lot.
Yeah. So super fun. But yeah, always make sure to check out our Snapchat every day. You can follow us, our Snapchat Discover channel, and lots of cool stuff like Game of Thrones, Pokemon, Overwatch, everything you love here on IGN.
But not much Game of Thrones for a while because obviously was the finale. And I think we all thought going into this episode, this is where we're going to get into breaking down the episode. But I was guessing last week, I missed you on the penultimate episodes, Dragons on the Wall. I guessed that R plus L equals J is going to come out in this episode. It's called The Dragon and the Wolf. We all guessed, okay, that doesn't just mean Jon and Dany. That also means Rhaegar and Lyanna. Mm-hmm. It did. We saw Rhaegar Targaryen, guys. But I cannot believe that R plus L officially equals J. You know, last year there was that HBO post about how that sort of gave it away. But to me, it wasn't official until it was official. And we were watching the Inside the episode afterwards, and David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, the showrunners, were talking sort of about how they needed to find a way to still make it surprising, even for something that people saw coming. Do you think that they did a good job of that?
Of sort of giving us something most of us already knew.
And still serving out, yeah, we are a bunch of nerds. But even going past it, I mean, it was more than just his parentage in this reveal.
Right, it was that really just saying out loud, putting all the clues together that Jon is the heir to the Iron Throne, has a better claim than Dany, which is crazy because he's Aegon Targaryen.
Which is a whole other can of worms because book readers know there is a different Aegon Targaryen. And I think in the show as well, they've established that Rhaegar's first son was also named Aegon, the one he had with Elia Martell, the Red Viper's sister. So what does that mean? Did they just really want an Aegon and it didn't matter whose name it was? I don't know.
I feel like once we get to this point in the books, we'll have like a whole different mess of clues to string together because it is very different. But yeah, let's just focus on the show to save ourselves some time and a bit of confusion. But no, yeah, so that was an awesome, crazy reveal that it's like we finally got it. You yourself, it was just an emotional win for you.
I wore my shirt. This is my second time this year, and I bought this shirt for the Tower of Joy episode, and I'm very glad that it all came true.
What if it was wrong?
Yeah, I would just scratch some things out. It was crazy. The Aegon Targaryen reveal was Like, I mean, I think everyone thought that they had people like slowed it down and had like linguists like checking to see like what Lyanna was saying in that scene. People settled on Jacaerys being the name, but then of course we find out it's Aegon here, and Bran has that great line that's like Robert's rebellion was built on a lie, which I loved, which was sort of the fun of the theory when you realize that sort of the thing that set Robert off was based on a lie. He thought that Lyanna, the woman that he loved, was kidnapped by Rhaegar and raped, and she married him.
Yeah, it's very sweet. You know, a very episode 2 Attack of the Clones secret wedding, Anakin Padme action there.
But very sweet, I think, that John's, came into the world from a relationship built on love. Now, there's another relationship that we're getting into now that just got a lot more complicated.
Yes, well, history is repeating itself. A dragon and a wolf are lying in bed together again, and
Targaryen incest.
Yes, and that was that was sort of the weird part. As he's like confirming, as Bran is confirming that Jon and Dany are in fact related. They're both Targaryens. They're boning. They're in the bone zone.
Whoever was in the editing room had so much fun with this episode too, because like they're waiting until Jon like thrusts into Dany, and he's like, and he's the true heir to the Iron Throne, and then like, and it was funny again in the inside the episode where they're sort of like the showrunners are talking in like these big words in ways about this reveal, and then they're like, and Dany's his aunt, and it's like, yep, okay, well, some people loved it, I think, just looking at Twitter, and some people are like, you gross.
Yes, but there's already a meme out there of like, it's season 1 showing Jaime and Cersei, and it's like, ew, no, and then it's like season 7 Dany and Dawn, and everyone's like, yeah, finally.
I think the showrunners wanted to twist the knife a little bit with that reveal by being like, actually, they're related. I don't think it worked.
Because people have been shipping it. Oh, and it happened on a ship.
We watched this together and we were making the joke where, every week we've been checking in, do you ship it? And literally they're on a ship. Yeah.
That the rowing joke with Gendry plus this, it's the show is going to be becoming very meta.
Well, do you ship it at this point?
I do not ship it.
You do not ship it.
I think it's weird, and aside from the incest factor, which is already weird, just the fact that it could only lead to a huge clash, right? Like, do you really see them working out? Like, Dany has lived her whole life. Well, actually, she came up to believe through her life that she deserves this and she is the one. He's actually already pledged his loyalty to her. I guess it would make sense for them to get married and just call that a compromise, but I feel like she has a lot of pride, and I think that's going to be a big problem for them going forward, especially when they're supposed to be working together to stop the end of the world.
I agree with you, because I think, best case scenario, they get married and they just decide to make this union official, and that's all great. But I think you're right. I think Dany does have a lot of pride, and Jon had a lot of pride, but he bent the knee to her. Will she bend the knee to him? And, they're already, even before this episode aired, there was a lot of debate about whether or not she does have the he has the better claim to the Iron Throne, or she does. I think that the showrunners made it pretty definitive that she did. I'm not an expert to be able to go through and track all those things, but it is very curious that Bran was so adamant, we need to tell him. I guess because Daenerys is coming, but this can't be anything but bad news for their new blossoming romance. Again, things I never thought I would be saying, because they seemed so far-fetched when you started reading these books to actually happen.
Yeah, I will say the one thing that disappointed me about the reveal is that it's kind of the character who kind of already knew most of it is when Sam met Bran that they finally put 1 and 2 together, and how important it was about the thing about the succession to the throne. But I didn't think that was enough of a big impact. I guess for people who didn't know, they just had their minds blown. Right. It's going to be an awesome moment of TV for them. But for all of us, who've just been paying attention for a long time, we already kind of figured it out. I wanted Jon to find out, right? And have that sort of be where he's left at the end of this season, and then we have to like see how he deals with it going into next season. So the fact that the audience was told, essentially, that's not enough for me. I wanted it to be like higher stakes.
Well, I frankly did not have the same issue, which is saying something, because this is something that I've been waiting to have happen. You're like, yes.
You are Miss R plus L equals J.
But I am okay with it not happening here, because then that has to be the premiere, right? What comes next? There are 6 episodes left of Game of Thrones.
Don't
6.
say it out loud,
Only
Terry.
6. I know.
Makes it true.
It's crazy. And so to me, that has to be something that they deal with immediately. And we'll get to some predictions for what comes next from here later in the episode. But I like that is where they'll have to open. Like, they'll just have consummated this romance. They'll arrive in Winterfell, and Bran and Sam will be like by the way, surprise, you're the true heir to the throne, and we don't know what to do with this lady.
Mm-hmm. What if she? Well, how long is that boat ride going to take? Could she? Let's say, because remember they had that
probably -5 minutes.
Remember that conversation they had about? She's like, I can't have children. And it's like, maybe she can. And I guess we'll find out literally next season if she is with child, you know, if she, I love in the books, they call it her moon's blood. If she misses her moon's blood.
Yeah. Like that you can't say it with a straight face.
Okay.
Can you just take it again? Can you say the M word?
Moon's blood?
Yeah, you did it really well. No, I agree with you, and I like that, you know, we as fans place so much weight on George R. R. Martin's words and the words of his characters, and so when Miri Musder said, you know, you won't have a child again until the sun rises in the west and sets in the east, and like this whole prophecy, we're like, okay, like this happened, this happened, this happened, does this matter? And, you know, the books sort of set up their own way for that story to take off. But to me, John's lying to her about, like, I don't know if you should buy Miri Musder's claim that you can't have kids as real. It's sort of a, you know, a note to fans, like, hey, ignore that, ignore the Valonqar theory, ignore all these things that you think are happening and just go along for the ride with us. So I'm with you. I think that she probably will end up being, like, pregnant with John's baby or something like that. And then I actually thought, sort of jumping ahead a little bit, I thought that maybe Tyrion was going to make a deal with Cersei that would like promise their firstborn children to each other, and that would be part of their compromise, because Tyrion would know, oh, well, Dany can't have kids, and then if she did. But that didn't end up happening, so that's a theory that no one has to hear from Terry Schwartz. I think that we've covered most of R plus L equals J, and since we are the hosts, we are going to pick our favorite topics from this episode, which means we aren't going straight to the wall next. We're going to the death of Joshua's favorite character.
Yes, if you're listening only audio, you can't see it, but I'm actually wearing a black shirt. I showed up tonight wearing this black shirt to mourn one of my favorite characters.
You guessed it would happen.
Littlefinger. This whole season, we were like, there's no way that Arya and Sansa are really like playing against each other, and that Sansa's actually listening to Littlefinger. He's such a manipulator. How could she go along with it, right? So we've all been like, there has to be something else going on. Turns out there was. And
Thank goodness.
Yes. And that amazing scene where she summons Arya, and Littlefinger's just leaning against the wall, his smug little self, pulling all these strings. Not this time. And yeah, Arya, you know, Sansa gives him the reading of his life. Oh my gosh. And then Arya takes the cat's paw dagger. That I know you love that dagger, but it got put to some good bloody use this episode and took Littlefinger out.
How did that scene play for you? Did you buy that she was going to turn against Arya, or did you expect her to turn against Littlefinger?
I was like living in the moment and wasn't trying to be like, oh, like trying to figure out what they were going to do. I was like, holy crap, like Arya is good. Like she is great at what she does in terms of combat, but could she get out of this room? And would they really like kill Arya like this? Would Sansa do that? Because the earlier scene where it was Sansa and Littlefinger, that and like learning a little more about how Littlefinger's mind works, that really had me believe in, right? And so, but when it was all like a misdirect, right? And then she turns and starts accusing Littlefinger of everything he's done throughout the entire show, and she had it right, because when he said a couple episodes ago when he gave Bran the dagger, he's like, this dagger caused the War of Five Kings. No, it didn't. You did, Littlefinger. And they had got to the bottom of it, and this also means that Bran has been useful.
I know, that's what I was like, this is the most useful thing that Bran has done all season long. But it's funny you say, you know, they had it right. To me, I thought you had it right, because we've had so many conversations about Littlefinger, why he's your favorite character. We did this ranking of all the Game of Thrones characters, and you fought for him, and you said he is responsible for everything. And when they were like reading out all these charges against him, all I could think was Joshua had it right the whole time. Joshua was completely correct and because there were some things that we didn't necessarily know. We didn't know that it was Littlefinger's dagger, because that's not how it played out. And well, actually, I guess we don't know if it was Littlefinger's dagger in the books. Correct me if I'm wrong about that. But I think it was so interesting to see those track back and him get all these charges leveled against him, and then for him to go out in such an unceremonious way. Like Sansa didn't read a charge. She just said, you're tried for treason and murder, and then Arya just sliced his throat. Brutal. But I think the ending he deserved, to have like his protege just outsmart him and beat him at his own game.
Yep. In a way, he should have been proud.
Maybe he was for a second.
No, yeah. No, like I was saying, like I was in there in the moment. Like when he was desperate, and was first he was trying to talk his way out of it. And, like,
what a good performance, too.
Yes. Yeah, especially that first moment. And they pointed out in the after the episode, the showmakers were talking about it, of just him being like, come again? Excuse me? Everyone's going to use that meme of that guy going, huh?
It's replacing the blinking eye guy.
Yeah. So that was incredibly awesome and really cool. I will say that the fact that Littlefinger, he did cause this war among men and women, among of all, like, the politics. He's been playing the Game of Thrones this entire time. But the fact that he's dead is very symbolic to where the show is at now, is that the Game of Thrones no longer matters, right? He's sort of like closing the chapter of that story. He started the War of the Five Kings. It's essentially over now because they put all of that in the past. Let's just say it's on pause for now. Maybe it's not quite in the past to fight the dead. So I think that's also a really cool way for Littlefinger to go by closing that chapter of the story.
I also think what'll be really interesting looking back is, like, in this episode, I'm already thinking about it and how you have a new understanding of those scenes between him and Sansa on the sort of like barricade or whatever, the wall thing. Don't have the technical terms in my head right now.
The castle thing.
The castle thing. The dragon swoops or whatever, like war terms, battle terms we were trying to figure out.
Oh, yeah.
Spoils of war, and people were correcting us. So yeah, up on the wall. You see that scene, and at first you think that it's settling in that she's going to go and, like, call Arya or whatever, but really she's just preparing herself for taking down Littlefinger. My question, I think what people will go back and look at is, like, how much of the conflict between the both of them was real and how much was an act over the course of this season. I almost feel like it might be up until Arya confronted her that it was real, and then they had the shift in this episode. But do you have a different take on that?
No, yeah, that's what I was wondering too. So when did they make this plan? Was it all along? Were they sort of just like making Littlefinger think he was playing them, but really since the beginning they were playing him? Mm-hmm. Or did it really just happen between last episode and this episode that they kind of teamed up and, like, had like a heart-to-heart off camera, and Bran wheeled in his wheelchair and he's like, I have some things to tell you. Here's all these important plot details you'd like to know. And he's like, I want to be part of the takedown. Ask me, refer to me so I can say something really creepy and knowing that he said in private, he whispered in someone's ear, right?
Like, I wonder if they practiced it, did a couple of takes beforehand.
Yeah. So I'd like to think it was a long play and not something they just came up with before this episode. But it's I guess up to user interpretation at this point.
Yeah, and it's interesting to note too that they really did. A lot of fans, us included, were like, well, where is Bran for all these scenes? And I think it's important that they didn't have him there, because then we don't have the answer, right? We'll just sort of have to try and unpack it, or just trust that the show knew what was happening, because that was, something the showrunners talked about was, we knew we were building to this point, and so we could craft the whole season knowing we were building to this point. So they had a plan, guys. They had a plan.
Yeah. So goodbye, Littlefinger.
Do you have some final words?
Yeah. Listen, he was a master manipulator. He always had something up his sleeve. His sleeves had sleeves, and there was something in there too. Some of my favorite scenes were with him and Varys, the other master manipulator of the show, and we know his clock is ticking too. He's one of my favorite characters, not because I like him as a person, mind you. He is a terrible, awful, despicable sociopath, and he deserved what he got, but he went out in great style, and he played the game. He was one of the best players of the game, and so pour one out for you, Littlefinger.
For those on audio, that's me pouring one out for Littlefinger. I'll miss him on the show.
Poor guy. But not really, because he deserved it.
But maybe he is one of the lucky ones in Game of Thrones, because the wall came down this episode. I genuinely did not think that the wall was ever going to come down in the way that people were guessing. Like, sure, it was being set up. It is this massive, massive thing protecting Westeros from the north, from the White Walkers. It's so symbolic for it to come down. But when Viserion showed up and just was like breathing blue ice fire, whatever, and just took down the wall, like, what a genuinely great way to end the season, with all the White Walkers flooding in. They're here in Westeros now. The war has finally arrived. How did you feel watching that?
Well, first of all, I actually called it. I'm sure a ton of people
I think
called
it last week too, but still.
Right, that, like, of course the wall's gonna come down. He has a dragon. We actually had the nerdiest conversation of it. Okay, so he has an undead dragon. First of all, can an undead dragon still breathe fire, or would it breathe ice? And if it did breathe fire, how would it do that? Turns out it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
He's breathing blue fire, which is actually like blue fire is hotter than like orange and red fire. You know, if in white fire would be the hottest, but I guess maybe we'll never see that.
That'll be when Gandalf shows up.
Oh, there you go.
The White, yeah.
But yeah, so it was like someone took a blowtorch to like an ice sculpture and we're just running across it back and forth until the whole thing fell down. So that was huge, and obviously it means so much that the one thing keeping the whites out, the ice zombies from invading, is now gone. The war, winter is here, right? Like that is the most symbolic thing you could have given us, and a more epic. Like what more epic image could you have than the Night King riding an undead dragon?
So surreal.
As his horde of minions filtered into Westeros.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because book readers have overcomplicated how this will happen so much, and I think that it will be very complicated in the books, but I'm glad that in the end it was a pretty simple way that it all happened. And we're moving toward the point where Jon and Dany are heading to Winterfell. Winterfell is very close to the wall. Like, these things will all sort of collide together, and I think whatever role Cersei has to play farther down the road, you know, it will be important that she is still in King's Landing as the Night King comes in. But I think the big question a lot of people had was, did Tormund and Beric die, or did they make it out? I think that they made it out because I think there's a shot where you see them like jump over to the part of the wall that hasn't come down yet. Mm-hmm. So they're like west of Eastwatch? Like
west of Eastwatch.
Far enough west of Eastwatch on the wall that they're just stuck up there, I guess, or maybe they need to walk to Castle Black.
I think they're fine. In a show like Game of Thrones, where when somebody dies, you really see it, I think they're fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am curious, like, where season 8 will pick up after this happening. You know what I mean? Like, will it be them just the last of them walking in? Or where do we pick up from here? I
feel like they'll have made their way a bit, and then it'll probably start with like Danny and Johnny. Sorry, Danny and Johnny. Whoa, guys.
That's their couple name now.
Those two characters, like coming to like Winterfell or something like that. And I feel like maybe the end of the first episode will be they're like, oh shoot, there's whites and they've come, like they've arrived at Winterfell, and so we start with like the siege of Winterfell at the end of the first episode, beginning of the second episode.
Yeah, it is crazy. I mean, you were not here for last week's episode because I was up in San Francisco, but I did not love last week's episode. I actually just thought it was fine, which it was disappointing for a Game of Thrones episode because everything was happening a bit too fast. I think that this episode did a lot of similar things, but in a way that I enjoyed better. I think it made more sense for the show, and I think we are at the point that it sped up so quickly that I wouldn't be surprised if like Jon and Dany arrive in Winterfell and the King's army is already on the way and they're like about to confront it by the end of the first episode. 6 episodes is not many episodes.
I know.
Like we had 7 this season and it already went by so fast. And so I cannot imagine where the show goes from here, which is a perfect segue to what's happening down in King's Landing with Cersei Lannister. Did you foresee any of what her decision-making and sort of bait and switch was in King's Landing in this episode?
You know, I actually believed her when the first time she came out.
Me too.
Well, when she was like, you know, guys, I want it to be remembered that I said yes when you came to me for help, and I pledged our forces to help you guys out to defeat this common enemy. I was like, oh, good on you, and I actually believed her because it was in her own best interest. Because I thought that was like her way out of it. You know what I mean? Of saying like, let's say they beat the Night King, she can be like, can you at least have mercy on me and like my child, just because the fact that I helped you? Can we let bygones be bygones? At least to just let me have my life because of what I did for you guys. Turns out, no.
And we should have known better. I can't believe we got played by Cersei because I was the same way as you. I was like, you get it, girl. Like, good on you. That was a great speech, and you know we don't actually know what was said after Tyrion said, "Oh, you're pregnant," but she just decided to play him in that way. But I did think that Lena Headey acted the hell out of this episode. Yeah. And from, you know, the white revealing itself and the look on her face and her conversation with Tyrion, I just thought that it was so good all the way up until the end. When we've been asking so long, like, what will be the thing that breaks her relationship with Jaime? And this was it.
Yes.
This was it. Finally. What? I thought she was going to kill him.
I really thought, because, the Mountain pulled his sword out, and I really thought, look, finally we're going to see a big character death that we didn't see coming. Because I mean, I feel like there's a sense of finality about all these episodes, and that anyone's life like could be on the line. But I was like, oh crap, I really didn't see this one coming and happening like this, like before the last season. But it didn't happen. Yeah, I feel like she wanted to, like she knew she was losing the last person who was on her side, but she decided to play the game alone, right? Like she was the one who's like, be loyal to me, and like let's do this together, right? And I want it to be known that you and I are together and have be public knowledge, and we're going to raise this child together who's going to continue our line. We can't do that alone, right? And so that her desire to be the only one in control is kind of her undoing. It lost her a person who was so many things to her.
Literally so many things. And it is interesting too, because, you know, later in the episode, but we're sort of talking about it back to back, or Sansa has that line to Arya, what Ned said about, you know, the lone wolf dies, but the pack survives. Cersei is the lone wolf at this point. She's lost everyone except Euron, which, you know.
The lone lion.
Yeah, the lone lion.
You would think Euron's going to show up with the Golden Company, like 20,000 strong.
I think that the Golden Company is probably going to end up being important in the books, and so I think that they are going to. I wrote a whole theory about that too. I'm glad that it wasn't a throwaway line. I think that he will show up with the Golden Company because she needs someone. It's just like what she does with that. I also thought it was really interesting how Qyburn was very fascinated by these zombie creatures. And like, what's he going to do with this knowledge?
He's going to go touch himself later.
I think that he's going to like perfect his zombie formula or whatever. I feel like that wasn't throwaway. I feel like that was intentional. What is he going to do with this knowledge? Is he going to help them, or is he going to try and like come up with some way to make things even worse?
Or to try and like weaponize the whites for himself or something like that? Would he try it? That would be like his undoing though, right? There's no way that could work out for him.
Qyburn has a very horrible death on the horizon for him. I'm calling it now.
You're calling it now?
Yeah, he has to go down. But I am sad that Cersei's alone and in this way. I don't think she's lying about her baby. I think her baby is real. I don't think that's another Cersei lie.
Right. I wouldn't know how you would play that, because that would have to, eventually you'd have to start showing, and right? And,
so I was joking because of how quickly time was happening and how quickly people were getting around. I was like, she better have given birth by the time they get to King's Landing, because of how much everyone has gotten around.
Yes.
But I did think that it worked, and I am excited to see Jaime strike out on his own in this way. I hope he heads straight to Brienne, because they had such a cute scene in this episode, and no Tormund around for it. But speaking of reunions, this was an episode for them.
Yes, it was like all the main characters just sitting, aside from the Winterfell characters, just sitting in the dragon pit together. Also, how awesome was the dragon pit?
I know, it looked great.
Yeah, just sitting, and we got like Bronn meeting Tyrion again, and it's like, oh, I missed you. Oh, and Pod, yes, as well. Let's go get a drink, Pod. Yeah, it was so cool. The mountain. We were talking about the mountain, and
because Clegane Bowl didn't happen, but Sandor Clegane went right up to his brother and was like, "You know how you're going down." I was like, yes, yes, we do.
Yeah. So there were so many awesome things with just these characters who haven't seen each other in a long time, finally coming face to face, acting off each other. It really felt like Game of Thrones again.
Yeah,
right?
I felt like it was earned in a way that, you know, the ragtag group north of the wall felt like they just sort of slapped those characters together. These sort of reunions and culminations felt very, very earned and very real and very true to the show, like down to Tyrion and Bronn seeing each other again, and Brienne challenging Jaime, and him saying like the same exact thing he said last time, oh, we'll be on opposite ends of the battlefield next time we see each other. Maybe not. I really liked it all coming together, and it feeling like all these characters moved forward after those encounters.
I will say one thing did let me down, you know what I'm going to say, is that there were so many big personalities in that exchange of that meeting, and Dany she didn't bring it. She did not bring it. Like when it was her turn.
I think she was nervous. I almost felt like she was nervous.
Like, because it's the first time that her characters had to interact with all these other characters who in like real life are like all these like world-class actors and stuff, you know?
I thought Emilia Clarke brought it this season. I thought she was excellent. Yeah, I know
she's had her moments there, but in this season, especially this episode, when it was her turn to talk, I felt like I wasn't really convinced. You know what I mean? She obviously had the cool entrance, and she sits down. She's really nonchalant. Yeah, oh, it's fine. I just got off a dragon. My armies are surrounding your castle. No, MBD. But I didn't really, I wanted to feel some fire from her. Literally, she's the Dragon Queen, you know, of her and like Cersei. Like, I know she was there to make peace, but I wanted her to sort of give sort of a verbal show of power and sort of make her presence known as herself as a queen. And I wanted her and Cersei to spar a little bit or something. She just kind of just delivered her lines and that was it. And then everyone else kind of took over and did the rest of the talking.
Well, Joshua, maybe it is just some very subtle foreshadowing that she's not the real queen of Westeros and that Jon Snow is the real king, and he stood up and he said what he had to say about it.
I thought you were going to say Jon Snow is like the real queen of...
Yeah, Jon Snow is the real queen of Westeros. No, but I don't think that's actually it. I was struck by the way that her performance was pretty subdued, like she was shaken, like she was out of her element. I thought that was interesting. We haven't seen that a lot for Dany. But yeah, Euron just storming off. Like, Euron sort of sweeping over that meeting and then everyone shutting him down was pretty funny and bizarre.
But turns out that was a play too.
Yeah, but I wish that Dany had more of her moment in the way that like Tyrion and Cersei and Euron and Jon all did. So I'm with you there.
Yeah. How creepy was that white though, coming out of the box?
It felt like it felt like The Walking Dead. It felt like a straight zombie show, but I was sort of okay with it.
Because the whole thing, like as they were, making up with this plan, we're going to show Cersei this white, and it'll make her join our side and fight the Night King, someone else,
yes.
Fight the Night King. So I was kept wondering how she would react, and I actually didn't get a lot from her either. Did you? I didn't really get much
I
of a
really liked
read.
her performance.
Really? It was like constrained, but like a little agitated, like a little
She had this
afraid.
look of terror on her face, and I have to go back and watch it because I bet she did put her hand on her stomach right when it happened too. I bet there's something like that. Because Cersei is not someone to let when she's shaken, people see that she's been shaken. And I feel like you could see it. You could see that something changed, and she had been assuming that this was fake. It's real. How do I readjust? Where do I go from here? And then meanwhile, Qyburn is like, ooh, a zombie arm.
Yeah, I almost wanted...
I liked it, though.
I wanted her to show some doubt on it first, because she immediately was like, oh, shoot, this is terrible. This is the real enemy. And later, when she found out she was lying, I was like, was any of that genuine of her reaction? Or was she just going along with it to get peace and let them go march away from her castle?
I mean, I feel like she and Euron had a plan that he was going to go off and get the Golden Company regardless, which is why he stormed off. Or actually, that was after the White, so maybe not. I feel like if I was confronted with that, I would buy it. I would be like, okay, what do we got to do? And then she was shaken out of it when Jon was like, no, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to pledge to you as my queen. But Cersei, I feel like always is one step ahead because she thinks she has that Tywin in her. So I think that she probably had a plan B. She certainly had enough episodes to think about what she'd do when Dany got here. So I'll just assume that was her plan all along, even though she was shaken. But that seems like a good opportunity to get to our our theory thoughts on what comes next in season 8. Are you ready? Do you have some speculation? Let's speculate. So what comes next in season 8? I really think we talked a little bit about it, but I think that Jon and Dany get to Winterfell and are immediately served with the knowledge that Jon is Aegon Targaryen.
Yeah. You
can't
served.
wait. Yeah, you can't wait on that. What does that mean for the Starks, though, for the Starks who are there?
I don't think any of them will be happy, obviously, because when the Targaryens were last in power, that was really bad for them, so it's going to be all on Jon once he sort of comes to grips with it, is to let them know that, hey, Dany's she's a good person for the most part, even though she burns people who disagree with her alive as an execution, way of executing people. So, I feel like that'll be the big challenge, right, is first, letting people know that, hey, she's a good person, but then also saying like, oh, how do we deal with like the new succession to the throne? Probably have like a wedding, right? Maybe it'll be a symbolic of the wedding we just saw a flashback of. Probably not. What would be worse? I always think of what would be worse, right?
You're so Littlefinger.
Yes, what could be worse? Oh gosh, please don't say that. I'm not like Littlefinger. But what could be worse than them having that knowledge, having to deal with that, Dany wanting the throne, Jon having a claim himself that's more legitimate, and then the Night King attacks the castle with an ice dragon, with a super fire blue dragon. What could be worse?
Disconnected. Exactly. Right. I think that Sansa will be very happy with this news. I think she'll still love Jon because she was raised as his sister, But I think she'll be so stoked that she is Lady of Winterfell like she thinks she should be, and that will be great. But I think that Jon's line to Theon in this episode that, you're a Stark and a Greyjoy is going to be, it was very prophetic for how it will be for him. He's a Stark and a Targaryen, right? So I think that they will accept him. He's still their brother, even if this is the case. And Bran obviously came to terms with it, and hopefully it's a good thing. The real trouble will be, what does it mean for Dany and for Jon, especially with the Night King coming, which we think will happen by the end of the first episode.
I'm thinking it has to go really quick, and then I think they're gonna regroup, right? And then I think Jon's gonna get to ride a dragon himself. The dragon that survived is
Rhaegal.
Rhaegal, yeah. So which is like his father's name.
Yeah.
So it all fits and it's perfect. And we'll have Dany and Jon going into battle in the skies as a battle wages on the ground of Dothraki and Unsullied. Yeah, it'll be great. And Northmen all together. Fighting the whites. It'll be perfect.
Some characters very much cast aside this season were Yara and Theon, and we know that Theon went off to try and rescue Yara. I think that, one way or another, that's probably going to be dealt with in the first or second episode. And what will be important with that is we know Euron is still alive, so I think they will get that big culmination clash that they didn't quite get this year, or that they, were defeated pretty soundly when they fought this year. I think they'll get the upper hand one way or another and try and take him down.
I've actually found the Greyjoy storyline to be, I feel so unimportant compared to everything else going on. So I find myself just mildly annoyed with all of it. Every time like Theon gets like another big scene, I'm like, okay.
I'm curious. I sort of feel like Arya is nearing the end of what is her purpose here, right? Like she has the dagger. She has a Valyrian steel dagger, so she could feasibly fight in this war, but is that Arya? Is that who she is? I'm really curious to find out what her role is going forward.
Yeah, I don't know. She's not, the Faceless Men aren't people who fight in big battles like that, right? You're right. So she'll probably be sent on some mission of intrigue, maybe south to check up on Cersei or something.
I wasn't even thinking, I was like, what role could she play? Oh, what if she just goes and kills Cersei because she is the big name left on her list?
Yeah.
That would be great. And actually, Lena Headey has been saying for years that she wants Arya to be the one to kill Cersei of anyone. So I think that would be very fitting if that's sort of how those things tie together. I think Cersei's going to die alone and sad.
Well, here's the thing. Cersei's being protected by the Mountain. The Hound obviously wants a piece of the Mountain. The Hound and Arya reunion. They have to take down the Mountain together to get to Cersei. I can see it happening.
And also there's that whole theory about the Valonqar, the little brother, will be the one to kill Cersei. What if she dies in childbirth?
Oh my gosh, it's a boy.
It's a boy. So maybe it is like a very, very sad little story for her. Who do you think will not make it through this series alive?
Oh my gosh, this is huge. That's a lot of pressure.
A big one. I know.
I mean, of main characters,
yeah.
I suppose. Oh gosh, I don't see Jaime or Cersei making it to the end. I feel like Tyrion has to make it to the end for this show to not be just a lesson in like nihilism.
I feel like Davos will make it because I love him so much. I don't want Brienne to die because she hasn't really had anything to do for like 3 seasons.
She's so good. She got to act for like 10 seconds in this episode, and I was like, yes.
You got it. You got something. I really thought that Jon Snow would die before the end because I thought he was brought back for a reason, but when that reason is fulfilled, he will die. If his reason is to be king, is to rule the 7 kingdoms, then I think maybe Dany is the one who dies. Or maybe they just like can't be together in the end, and that's the cruel tragedy.
Oh gosh. If you ask me right now, the way things are going, and it's sort of kind of like fan servicey the show has been, where just all the main characters have plot armor and they're doing all the things we've always wanted them to do. I'm wondering if Jon and Dany will just wind up being rulers.
Happily ever after?
Yeah. Maybe I don't see it being a monarchy in the end, but maybe they'll be the leaders of, after they've broken down the wheel, they'll be the leaders of whatever comes next.
George R. R. Martin did always say that this story would have a bittersweet ending, which could be different in the show versus the books, but I feel like there are no happy endings. As Ramsay Bolton so infamously said, if you think the story has a happy ending, you have not been paying attention. That being said, I really want Sansa and Arya to come out alive. Like, that's it. That's the end. I don't want anything to happen to them. They've already had so many terrible things happen. And Bran, too. Let's just lump him in, even though he's the Fred.
Deserve a W.
Yeah. Do you have any other big predictions before we go for season 8? It's sad that we have to wait until maybe 2019 for another season.
Gosh.
I know, it's brutal.
No, I feel like I'm all predictioned out. I have to sit back, digest, rewatch this entire entire season and then come up with some more stuff.
Well, the nice thing is, even though this was the last episode of Game of Thrones Season 7, this is not the last episode of Dragons on the Wall. Joshua and I will be back next week for a bit. Once we've hopefully had a chance to rewatch this entire season before that, we will unpack Season 7 as a whole. So we definitely, if you guys have any topics you want us to hit, anything you thought we missed, anything you want us to revisit, tweet at us. I'm at Terri_Schwartz. He's at Joshua Yale. Leave comments here. We definitely want to hear your thoughts. And if you got a shout out for getting things right, let us know if some of our predictions sound good too, because we hope they all come to pass.
We need Donut Fan, weigh in on us.
Yeah, Donut Fan, let us know what comes next. I think that'll do it, our show for today. We have so much Game of Thrones content. We're definitely going to have plenty more discussions. I'll hopefully have a good deep dive theory for you guys by the next episode. But if not, check out our coverage all week long on IGN.com. That's our show. If you enjoy Dragons on the Wall, please like and subscribe and give us positive comments everywhere you like to watch. Tell your friends, tell your family. There's a long, cold night of a wait ahead of us before we get to Season 8. And make sure to like and subscribe to IGN as well, every place you like to watch. Thanks, guys.